This our in this second webinar for today, and our guest speaker for this second webinar will be Fernando Machado DIAS. He's leadership and team coach, an ICF-MCC coach, and he's going to be talking today about fostering trust and psychological safety in remote teams. So without further ado, Fernando, the floor is yours. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Denice. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for the invitation. Really pleased, really thrilled to be here. I believe you all see my sharing my screen with you. It's a little presentation I made to walk you through the thing about what it is to do all that, right? So just a second. Yeah, there we go. So ground rules, you know, there's some just a little bit so we can make more out of that, which is love to have all of you present here. You know, just try to participate as much as you can. Again, this is not a lecture. You can you can unmute your mic and ask a question. You can write in the chat box. You know, Maha will be there giving us a hand with that and so on. So feel free to get in touch and ask questions and participate. Also, well, if your mobile phones are mute, it would be great. Or if you have any kind of background noise, I mean, it would be great if you can perhaps mute your mic while this is happening. It's totally understandable. Sometimes it happens. We have things happening at the same time, and we're not totally here. But it would be great if we could have you know, your phones mute and so on. Mutual respect, of course, and confidentiality. Well, what's he stays here like Vegas. How about you guys? How about what would you want to have as a ground rule, you know, from me? You can either unmute your mic and speak to me, or you can write on the chat box and let me know what would you like. How would you like this minutes we're going to be spending together to be? You're not very demanding, are you? So Denice, it seems that not many requests here, right? So off I go. So what's the structure of this talk today? What we're going to be doing is just would like you to be more aware about building and maintaining trust and psychological safety in remote teams, which is something that we all living right now. So we're going to be looking into definitions of trust. We're going to be looking into what psychological safety is and why they're important to remote teams, and what team effectiveness and how it's achieved. What's the evidence about that? Let's take a look into trust in terms of understanding the different types of it and how they can be achieved. And then how our digital body language is what's going to be replacing what we don't have now, because we are communicating without seeing each other. I mean, we are seeing, but with the camera. So we need to understand a little bit how we can create that trust, how we can create and maintain the psychological safety that's so important to it. But before we go ahead, you know, I'd just like to know, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you think about trust? Yeah, you know, that Ruqya did speak a lot about that. You went over this, and it was lovely the work she did about how trust is to do with ourselves, is how we faced it. It was lovely. The way she conducted you and showing all those very nice exercises. But if you could share with you with us in the chat box, when you think about trust, what comes to mind? What does it mean? What it is to trust? Integrity, security, as FIFA says. Imran goes, trust means confidence. That's true. It generates, Imran, it generates confidence. Yes, very good. Okay, anything else? You know, you can unmute your mics and speak as well. You don't need only to be writing, it's up to you. Positive
Trust
expectation. Sorry?
Trust is interdependent. I can depend on the person that I'm trusting, or I can trust.
Love that, love that. I couldn't see who said that, but I love that, you know, thing. Yes, we can depend, right? We can act upon it. Well, social scientists, they say that trust is the extent to which we are confident in and willing to act on the words, actions, and decisions of another person. Okay, we trust people if what they say, do, or decide instills confidence in us. That's how I was quoting, like Imran spoke about confidence, but it's more the words, the acts, and the decisions this other person makes or speaks or does that instills that confidence in us. This is trust, you know. And then how does it like affect teams so trust, they glue, it's that glue that binds teams together. It drives performance and enables collaboration and coordination, because everything the person says, does, and decides instills that confidence in us. It can't be forced, like Rocco explained so well before me. It's a judgment people must reach on their own. So we must reach that decision to trust somebody based on that. And by trusting who we work with, okay, we are willing to be vulnerable, which is another key aspect of trust. So we make sure, right, that they will do their part in the tasks that have been assigned, and also keep confidence or whatever I share with them. Yes, Imran, accepting vulnerability. This is really key for trust, you know, and also in teams, trust includes the expectation that people will deliver, right? They will act, they will deliver for the good of team, not his or her own benefits. So this is quite important in that aspect. How about psychological safety? What's the first thing that comes to mind when you think about it? Any idea? Not being judgmental. Yes, Prashant, very good. Veronica, not being bullied. Yeah, well, when there is psychological safety, you don't get bullied, right? And a non-judgmental environment is a psychologically safe one. Yes, confidentiality in a way as well, because in a way that things won't be kind of, people won't use information we give to put us in a bad position. To believe ourselves, yes, Rohit, it is related to it, but it's go a little beyond that. We're going to be looking into this. Afifa's physically and emotionally safe. Yeah, it's related to it. It goes a little bit further into that. Not being afraid of repercussion if we share ideas or thoughts openly. Spot on, Iram. That's it.
And assurance.
Yes, sorry. An assurance about?
Psychological safety is an inner assurance.
Inner assurance, right. Well, yeah, that's true. He winds up generating it. So let's just take a look at what it is. Given by the person who coined the term, is Amy Edmondson, is a professor from Harvard Business School. She coined the term out of her investigation, out of her research into companies and teams, right? So it's this belief that we are not going to be either punished or humiliated or retaliated if we speak up with our ideas, questions, concerns, and mistakes, right? It's the shared belief team members have. That is, I can take interpersonal risks in terms of, I can go and tell a colleague of mine that perhaps his job could be better done, or tell my colleague, well, that perhaps she shouldn't be so blunt when she speaks. So we're not afraid of say what we think. Okay, so it is this climate where we feel confident and comfortable about expressing and being ourselves. Okay, and in practical terms, we feel confident, we feel comfortable sharing concerns or mistakes that we make, mistakes other people make, without fearing being embarrassed or getting a retribution, like people trying to get even to us because we spotted a mistake that was done. You know, because the common good, the main focus is the team or the organization. It's not the person's reputation. It's very important that we move away from, you know, the psychologically safe environment. It's not about us. It's about the collective. Does it make sense? Good stuff. So a little bit more about psychological safety. Either in remote teams or co-located teams, people who are working together, well, the benefits are tremendous. You know, this is well proven. And what happens is one of the biggest challenges is how to maintain trust and psychological safety and in remote teams, because we humans, we rely a lot on looking at the whole body. We don't realize that we do this automatically. We're wired to listen to the words, to understand the meaning that the words make, but also the tone, you know, the tone of voice, the facial expressions, the body language. There's so many information, so much information that comes from non-verbal sources. You know, some of it can be replaced by the camera. Now we can see our faces. We see the upper part of our upper body. So there is a little bit of that. We try to make do with that in this remote teams environment, but it can be really problematic. And this is an area that we need to look into it. It is the number1 requirement for high performing teams, you know, and now that many of us are working remotely, psychological safety is even more difficult to build and maintain. So it's an area to be, it's a key area to be concerned about. Psychological safety and trust, they are not the same thing, even though you need to trust to be psychologically safe. You know, so psychological safety depends on trust, but it's not trust. It's not exactly that. Any questions? Any doubts so far? Any comments? Good. Team members don't attack each other's knowledge. Yes. Yeah. Fearless organization, everyone. This is it. Worth reading. It's beautiful. Yeah. She's not only an authority, she was the one who spotted it, the importance of it. And then many people followed her doing great stuff. So yeah, Amy Edmondson is a great scholar. So when it comes to trust and psychological safety in remote teams, you know, so how can I trust colleagues I barely see in person? Let's say right now with the lockdowns and even global teams before that, we don't see them. We can't read their body. We can tell, you know, all those messages they say. How can I trust someone if I can read their gestures, body language, facial expressions, you know, in periodic face-to-face meetings like we used to do, or more co-located teams used to have? How do we establish trust and psychological safety when we're separated by geography? And how do I know I'm not being judged or going to be punished or humiliated by speaking up when we are all relying in this media that we are using right now on digital communications to do what we have to? And now there are so many teams who are hiring people. There are new members joining and they have never been together. You know, this is happening a lot. So how we build those new relationships, how we build up this trust. So all these questions I'll try to go over with you so we can start answering, see what can we do if we cannot count with this very important tool that we have, language tool, which is our bodies and so on. Well, before all that, I just would like to take a look at what means to be effective as a team, because the focus of these webinar today is to do with teams, right? And I would like to quote Professor, the late Professor Richard Heckman from Harvard, in he was a sociologist, and his entire life was dedicated to studying teams and collectives, you know. And he said, well, he's got no doubt about all the magic a team can provide, but don't take this for granted. Don't count on it, because there are so many aspects that need to be in place for the team to work. And what he came up with this set of conditions, right, that he called the 16 conditions, that will generate good processes, right? Then those good processes will generate the team effectiveness. And if these conditions are not in place, then you can't get the processes right, and then the effectiveness won't be there. I just wanted to go over this to see the importance of trust and psychological safety in remote teams, right? So just taking a look at Professor Heckman's model, right? So he said team performance is part of the team effectiveness in terms of delivering what the clients or whatever are the stakeholders who use the team services and products are expecting, or more, or exceeding it. It's also to do with every time it delivers, the quality of the process improves. And also the members get more and more satisfied because they feel they are growing with the team. This is what means to be effective. And this member satisfaction requires psychological safety. And even the team performance, to be able to deliver the goods at the required level and also to exceed what the stakeholders need, it's also very important, this trust, the psychological safety amongst the team members. And by doing so, the quality goes better and better. So what are the 16 conditions that Richard Rackman came about? He termed 3 of them, he called the essential ones. They must be there. It's a very important condition. And the other 3, there are enablers, or they facilitate these effectiveness. So the first thing is real teams, to be a real team. And to be a real team, it is important to be interdependent. Yeah, somebody just, I couldn't tell who said, I'm sorry, I don't remember the name because I couldn't even see. There are so many little squares here. Yeah, and the interdependence, the stability of the team, and the definition, the boundedness of the team. So everybody knows who's a member, who's not a member. This is very important to be a real team. Also, the compelling purpose. There is an alignment. Everyone is aligned towards a purpose, which is delivering the goods and services to the stakeholders. And the stakeholders are themselves, you know, and to think also systemically. It's not only within the organization that the teams belong to, not only to the clients that the external clients that the team perhaps provides the services and products to, but also with the whole society and the whole planet. So having this compelling purpose and understanding why we exist, this is also like essential for a team to function. And then having the right people with the right competencies and also the right amount of teamwork capability. Okay, those are essential according to Professor Heckman's research. It has to be there, and then it gets facilitated by a sound structure, which do with the norms of conduct, with the design of the tasks, how the tasks are designed, the size of the team, it cannot be too big, and so on. The supportive context has to do with how the organization supports it. It has to do with the recognition that could be financial, that could also be, there are several types of recognition as well, and also the resources, the material resources given. And finally, the last one is the team coaching, which is having the team taking care of not getting away from its tracks, you know, and keeping in mind the compelling purpose it's had. Team leadership has to be related to these, you know, has to be dealing with taking care that the essentials and the enablers remain in the right place so we can get these. And the process to get there is through the key task processes, right? So if the 6 conditions are in place and are well calibrated, we get everybody putting the effort that's necessary to achieve the effectiveness. The strategy that the team decides to take is usually optimal. And also the knowledge and skills of all members are fully taken advantage of, okay? So this is to be effective as a team, okay? Based on Professor Hackman's work. Now, and he also found out that for this to work, 60% of the work that we have to do with teams, remote or co-located, right, has to be designing, and the design is to do with the design is to do with this. Are we real? How are we going to design the interdependencies, right? Who I'm going to put in the team? Are the right competencies there? Is there teamwork mentality? And the purpose, are we all aligned? Do we understand why we exist? We're not there just to save our jobs. By the way, the jobs will be saved by delivering the goods. That's something that's quite important to understand, the systemic aspect of it, you know? So this is all to do with the designing part that Professor Hackman spoke so much about. And then the launching of it, this communicating, having all clear and relaunching. And this is what I'm going to go back here many times, because when we are remotely operating as a team, we need to use every moment possible to relaunch the team, to remember what the compelling purpose is, to remember the need of being, of having teamwork, of being interdependent, and so on. Okay, and then finally, the coaching is to do related with you know, making sure that the design remains there. You know, there's no any misguidance there, and constantly launching and relaunching the process. You know, that's what it's all about, right? And since trust is so important, it's also interesting to take a look at trust and see the different types of trust. Okay, there is one what we call the cognitive trust, which we use, okay, what we develop because we trust that our colleagues are reliable and dependable. They can deliver the goods because the knowledge they have, the experience they have, the degree they have, or the competence that has already been proven, right? And usually is reached fairly quickly with remote colleagues, okay? Because, oh, he worked there, oh, he's got a degree from Stanford, or whatever is the parameter I'm using, I can cognitively trust somebody. When it comes to emotional trust, and this is a very important topic that I think Ruqya, yes, in the previous talk spoke a lot about emotional trust. That's the one that's key there. It's grounded on the feeling. We need to sense that our colleagues care and they are concerned about us, okay? So to have that positive feeling, emotional bonds, and takes more time, so it's more difficult, okay? And if you consider it like plainly, impossible to reach remote teams, not impossible. That's the trick. It is, we can, there are ways of developing that emotional trust. So, as we were saying, right? So, cognitive trust usually takes a long time. You know, it can be faster, like this intensive cognitive trust, because we trust the training, we trust the competence, so we can go really high in a short period of time, right? And then you have what we call the passable cognitive trust, by the work of Sid O'Neilly from Harvard School as well. So, and this passable trust is the minimum level of trust, and the majority of the connections we have are based on only passable trust. Emotional trust takes longer time. We need to be proven that the person has concern, they care about us, right? But then the emotional trust can reach the same level of this cognitive trust. So this is the sweet spot that we want to arrive, so we can blend both cognitive and emotional trust, okay? Here, training can help a lot, especially like flight crews. As you probably know, the pilot arrives, he doesn't know who's going to be the flight attendants. Sometimes he doesn't even know who's going to be the co-pilot. You know, it's decided there. Or surgical teams, they also don't know who's going to be the anesthesiologist, or who's going to be, they decide when they arrive that who's going to be working with. So the high level of training generates that type of trust, which is quite important, okay? Also, enforcement teams, law enforcement teams like the police, they need to be highly well trained because they don't know who they're going to be working with. But then the emotional trust comes afterwards. All right. So I just wanted to make this distinction so we understand that there is a lot. I mean, this minimal, it's without this, we can't work, but we need to get there to be really effective. So, and how can we develop emotional trust in remote teams? That's the quick question, right? So then it comes the concept that was presented by Erica Dhawan, which the digital body language. Okay, as I was mentioning to you, we are constantly sending cues and signals by the way we speak, by the way we move, by the way we look. If we look, or if we show that we are listening, our presence in us, Otto Scharmer call, right? All the skills, we do this on face-to-face interaction. When we're doing this digitally, we have to find a way of replacing it because we don't have the same tools, as I mentioned before. So how can I clarify my messages that are being sent digitally? What are the agreed norms of communication amongst team members? So those are keys that this is worked on. And how can we work on those, right? So a digital body language goes through choice of communication medium. So depending on the situation, depending on the case, I need to see, what do I have in my hands? I have the email, I have instant messaging, I have these meetings like we have, a Zoom call or a Teams call, or I have a phone call. There's so many tools. So what is the right one for the thing I have to do? This is also to do with this body language that I'm developing digitally. Who I'm going to be copying my messages? Who I'm going to be black copying? Okay, am I going to forward anything? Am I going to answer? All of these to do with all decisions we have to make. What language I'm going to use? What word choice will I have? How long will I take to answer the messages that I receive, right? Video meetings, how will I organize it? And use of punctuation, exclamation marks, question marks. This, and it can be a lot of things. And meeting times, especially if you are remote, if you are globally remote teams, you have people with completely different time zones. And finally, the use of emojis. Some people are more, accepting of this. Others believe they are not serious because the emojis are there. They try to replace the tone of voice. They try to replace the facial expressions in written communications, but some people just don't get them and they can misunderstand them. So now, because of time, I'm going to be focusing a little bit more on choice of communication medium and language and word choice. Okay, and based on the work of Sal Neely that I've already mentioned, there are different ways of communicating, different tools, and some are leaner in terms of the content and some are richer. Okay, so we need to see, and as we decide how we're going to do this, okay, and then we can have some synchronous and asynchronous type of communication. So what tool I'm going to use? What medium am I going to use to send the message I want to send? So you just see, like synchronous and rich, you'll be around here, face-to-face or video. It's complex coordination. You need to speak and listen. You need to discuss, collaborate. You cannot come on a video call and try to impose your views. There always have to be this give and take in the process, right? When you go to lean, okay, in synchronous, then it's easy. You just inform me, then it's okay. So asynchronous, then it's better for team selection, for content development. So the work of Sal Neely, she has a wonderful book called Remote Work Revolution. It's just, like a couple of months printed. It's very new. She refers to the COVID crisis and what's happening to the remote work today. So I strongly recommend you take a look at that if this is a subject that you're interested in. And then she also came up with this table with the different types of medium and different types of medium, and then the delivery speed that each one of them have, the number of recipients, the variety of expression, the fine-tuned potential and the message permanence. So this is quite interesting. And then you decide what of those media, which one will I use? Okay, Dval, which was the one? I'm sorry, I missed this. 226, it was a while ago. Was this one, Dval? Well, by the way, you'll be able to get it, okay? I'll show you how to get a hold of a copy previous to this, okay? Just a second. This one. Yeah, this is, Erika Dawan brought this concept of the digital body language, which I liked very much, which is the way the tools we have to replace what we don't have anymore. Right? Oh, one more. Is this the one that's next to it? Those are the digital body language topics. I'll be focusing now in choice of communication media and the language and the word choice. So, yeah, no worries, Dhaval, no worries. Then, okay, as I went over this, and then this table is really interesting. You'll be able to take a look at that. Because of time, I'm not going to be going over with too much detail here. These I find quite important in terms of language and word choice, especially because we work in those global organizations in which one language becomes like the business language. And then you have people who are more fluent in that language, others who are less fluent. And then it becomes an issue of diversity and inclusion even, And then the little cliques, you have the people who speak Arabic, the people who speak Spanish or who speak French, and then they make those little cliques, and then you have lots of exclusion happening there. Okay, so one thing is, if you are a speaker of the dominant language, dial it down, the dominance. Be aware that some people won't know the idioms of the language. They are not native speakers, so don't use those slang, don't use this abbreviations, make sure and always check if they get it. Do you understand, right? And if you are working in an organization, or you are in a project that the dominant language, it's not your mother tongue, you're not very fluent, but you can operate in it, you dial up your engagement. Don't be afraid, go out there and speak and ask people to repeat in case it wasn't very clear. So make that word choice, and then balance for inclusion, especially for leaders. Make sure everybody has a say, and those who are less fluent are given an opportunity to contribute, because the fact that you don't speak a language well doesn't mean you can't contribute. Okay, it sounds a bit logical and simple, but the amount of unconscious bias there is because of accents, especially in the English spoken world, because if you got an accent, people kind of don't take you as seriously. So leaders have to be very aware of that, because people with excellent contributions they could make, they don't make because they are afraid of being ridiculed because of that, right? So this all generators of trust and psychological safety in organizations, in teams. So there are 5 key principles, again, using the work of Erika Dawan for the digital body language. So brevity creates confusion. And this is something that today in our world, we press for brevity. Time is money, we need to be really quick. And then you answer an email very quickly without checking if the person who's receiving it, or you call up a meeting without telling what's the subject. So imagine if there is like a restructuring in the company, and you have an authority position, and then you ask somebody to discuss a project without telling that you want to discuss the project. You might think, oh, I'm gonna get fired. So the amount of anxiety you generate, so you are undermining trust, you are undermining psychological safety. So be careful with how the brevity sometimes saves time, but then you need to use more time later on to fix what has. And that's why it's very important that when your digital body language in spoken, written language, you have to have a mindset of communicating what you're thinking. So why are you calling that meeting? What is the ask? What's the objective? What's your mood? How are you feeling? Try to share that as well, okay? because then you're bringing in transparency, you're bringing in psychological safety, you are modeling it, okay? Quite important, that aspect. Hold your horses too. We get very anxious, especially when we send a message and we don't get the response we want, all right? And then you say, oh my God, he doesn't care about me. He doesn't like, we don't realize what are the commitments the other person's got, okay? So be careful with this response time and the anxiety that it generates in us. And also sometimes we are angry when we write an email. If it's something serious that will have consequences, you know, sleep over it. Don't send it now. Wait a little bit, you know, read it again next morning or a couple of hours late and realize what you're doing. So holding your horses is key for the digital body language that will generate trust and psychological safety in your team, in your remote team. Also, when something comes and you interpret it as offensive or reckless, whatever, assume the best intent. Maybe they don't have the language control you thought they had. And there's so many aspects in there. So assume the best intent always. And very important topic, find your voice. And that's where I'm going to focus now on this 5 key principles. Who is in the receiving end of your message? Or even somebody who sent you the message, right? Are they more introverts? You know, the introverts, they require time to reflect and observe, you know, before. Okay, so you keep, when you're communicating with a group that are more introverts, say a software development team, they tend to be more introverts, right? So keep open lines of communication outside of the meetings, because in the meetings with more people, they might tend not to speak as much. If they're extrovert, have more regular face-to-face or video meetings, you know, if you cannot have face-to-face because you are remotely assigned, right? Clear agendas to allow for preparation. Okay, so give people time to prepare, and also state in the mind, say no brevity messages, clarify why the meetings are, and you know, use breakout groups if you have more extroverted people so they can voice out, they can speak and participate. So each group has its own group. Another important voice that we need to identify is, are my target, or is my target digital natives, or they are digital adapted? You know, I'm 60 years old. You know, I'm 60 years old. So I'm a digital adapter, even though I'm catching up quite fast. You know, I still struggling is talking to my 14-year-old daughter. You know, and once this the generation Z is entering the workforce, we're gonna get more of these. We're gonna have lots of digital natives who behave completely different than we did. Our beliefs coming from like a baby boomer or generation X or millennial is different from a generation Z. You know, so be aware of that too. Who are you dealing to? Who are you talking to? Okay, it's also important to find the voice. So a little bit more about digital body language. Value visibly, like show that you are concerned. You know, make sure that you know what time is it in the where your colleague is located when you set up a time for a meeting. You know, recognize the efforts and the value. So it's very important to emphasize, you know, this value. Communicate carefully, choose the right words, be careful. Also, what medias I'm going to use? Am I going to email? Am I going to have a video conference? Am I going to call? You know, choose it, because as we have seen, there is a table depending on what you need to do. Okay, you are sending a message and you're clarifying what you want. Okay. Collaborate confidently. So again, confidence is to do with trust, as we have seen. So trust that people will deliver, and we need to show it, you know, especially if you are a leader or even a colleague, because you generate trust by trusting, you get trust back. And if there is a mistake, if there is a delay in the delivery, let's look systemically. Why did it happen? You know, don't blame on a person. Try to look at the team as a system and see where in the system, what parts of our norms do we need to work on. Trust totally, you know, don't trust just half and half. Make sure that people are there because they deserve to be. Okay. Some other things I'd like to share with you, just to generate more non-work related contact, but this is another way that we generate emotional trust with our colleagues, is going out for a, for a beer if you drink, or going out for whatever, or talking about sports, or sharing things about, trying to have some non-work related contact. This is quite important, because then people will know that you're not only that engineer, you're not only that human resources professional, you're not only that whatever you are, because you are a human being with your dilemmas, with your doubts. And these websites are amazing. They have developed some stuff that you can do online with teams that are really teamwork, escape rooms, trivias. It's really interesting. So this is another stuff that you can do there. Right. Well, many thanks for your interview. I just I made a mistake with my timetable, and I have an appointment in the hour. So in 19 minutes, I need to be online in another call. But I have another 9 minutes now for questions, comments, whatever you need from me.
Thank you, Fernando.
You're welcome, Denice. Sorry.
Okay, great. So we open up to questions, comments, reactions. So go ahead. If there is any question, please jump in.
Oh, but by the way, if you want to get a copy of those slides, I can happily send it to you. Just write to me. My email is there. My phone number as well. You can text me over WhatsApp or write me an email. I'll be happy to share with you those slides.
I may start with some questions just to
of course.
Appetite to. So two questions, Fernando, off the cuff. So the first one, it's about psychological safety. So is it always something positive? This is number one. So
is it something positive about psychological safety?
So is it always something positive? So
yes.
I'd like to challenge a little bit that thought. This is
very good. No, yes. Well,
okay.
Of course, Gannouni, I just want to make a comment there, and connecting with the work of another scholar called Carol Dweck from Stanford, that made the distinction between a growth mindset from a fixed mindset. So to have psychological safety and experiment it to generate well-being, you have to be in a growth mindset. Because in a psychologically safe environment, people will let you know where your performance wasn't up to standard. And people will also give their opinion about things that could be improved. And if you are residing from a fixed mindset, you suffer a lot, because you believe that our intelligence and competence are fixed things. So we need to go over to growth mindset and understand, oh, this is a learning opportunity, and you will welcome all these developmental feedback. Yeah, sorry, I interrupted because I thought it was an important topic. Yeah.
No, great. So second question. So what difference do you make between trust and faith? When I say I trust myself or I believe in myself, what difference you make between both?
Very good. Yeah. Well, what the words brings, it's all to do with words, right? And what you associate with the word. Okay. Faith is usually related to religion, right? So and there are several different types of faith, and they usually, especially in the West, that with the Judeo-Christian Muslim tradition, is related to a life after death. Okay, so if you have faith in it, you trust that this is true in a way, and it goes beyond emotion. It goes into it's very strong. It's not logical. It's very emotional one. So the trust is more encompassing, I would say. And the type of trust I was talking to today is more related to cognitive and emotional trust. It's to do between human beings, you know, especially with teams that we are interdependent on each other, you know. And then the trust I have that you will deliver what you have agreed to me, and all your acts, your words, your decisions make me trust you, because I see a coherence with what you say and what you do. The way you decide is aligned with your discourse. So all of these alignment makes me trust you. So that's the meaning there. But yeah, I have faith in you. I can say this. In Portuguese, that would translate well, but in English, I don't think it would. You know, Portuguese is my mother tongue. I'm from Brazil. But in English, I have faith in you doesn't go very well. But
what if I believe in you and I believe in myself?
Very much, yeah. So faith has this religious connotation that goes beyond, goes into the divine, which is, I believe, is beyond emotional.
Okay, great.
I hope I answered the question.
I open up to our audience. So any question, please go ahead.
Hi, I have a question.
Hi, Doha.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm okay, good.
So as you may everyone know within this space that when we are talking about psychological safety, there are different layers need to be covered before talking about this concept, because we need to build the culture related to this concept. So maybe what are your recommendations or tips and tricks when it's come of rebuilding trust?
Right. Okay. Well, again, that's why that you remember when I was talking about Dr. Hackman's thing that 60% of is designing a team, and then 30% is launching or relaunching, and then 10% is maintaining the team in track through coaching. My tip is every moment, especially with remote teams, every time you gather together with your team, make it a relaunch. Go over what's the compelling purpose, why we are here for, what are we serving, you know, how and how this purpose is aligned with our own personal individual purposes, you know, so people feel aligned. Okay, by doing so, any little bickerings that, oh, I don't like your accent, I don't like that day because you cut me in the middle of my thought. So we want to cut away from this personal kind of differences and bickerings, because we are all focusing on one goal. So that's based on his evidence and based on my experience coaching teams. Put the whole team focusing on why we exist, what our purpose, you know, and make them forget that, oh, I need to keep my job, otherwise I won't be able to pay my mortgage. I need to pay my son's college. Yeah, that's true. But these are all consequences of you being fully aligned onto a compelling purpose.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Doha.
Any other questions? Go ahead, please. Any thoughts, any comments? So the space is yours.
Hey, Fernando, in one of the slides you have mentioned that brevity creates confusion. Can you just elaborate a little bit on that? Yes,
definitely. Yeah, what the author meant about this was sometimes we get like invitations for meetings that are not very clear the reason why, or you are like one-liners messages, or you make a phone call, come here now, or whatever, you know. You can, so if you make your messaging very brief, you generate confusion, you know. And this is one principle from the Agile movement, which says slow is fast. It means like we need to plan, you know. So when we look into our digital body language, one important tool is be clear on how you communicate. What are you communicating? Communicate your mind. So why are you asking this? What is the ask? So if you don't get everything clear, if you don't take into consideration the language level of your target, you know, how versed they are in the language I'm using. Can I use idioms? You know, like English speaking, there's a lot of these. You have this idiomatic expressions that mean the world, you know. But then if a non-native speaker won't get it, you know. So be careful with brevity, because you may save some precious minutes at the moment you're sending the message, but then you're going to spend way more by fixing whatever perception he has generated. Does it make sense?
Yeah, that's pretty much clear. And the next one is the communicate your mindset.
Right. Okay. I don't know if you ever heard about this. It is like at the beginning of a gathering, you give like 30 seconds to everyone to say about how they are feeling, you know. So this is usually done also in the agile movement, you know, in the stand-up meetings at the beginning, everyone goes over and say how I'm feeling today. You're not supposed to give feedback. You're not supposed to, just to be able to share. So it is the same way you would do this when you are communicating. So let people know what you want. What is the ask? What are you requesting from them? By when? What is the priority of what you're requesting? You know, the Get Things Done by David Allen has a very interesting way, if you're interested into it, on putting little headings in the subject line of your email messages, for example. Stuff that is urgent, you need to spot, it's urgent, you know, otherwise the client is going to leave us to another competitor. You know, you need to state, or if it's just a request, you know, information. So you need to know. So communicate your mindset is this. Make sure that you're not doing things too brief, and you're choosing the right words to communicate what's in your mind, so people can get the message more clearly. And when we're dealing virtually, it's way more important because we don't have the body language, you know, and sometimes you know that when we know our teammates so well that just one glance, just one movement says a lot, but we don't have that virtually. So we need to be maniacally detailed in that aspect, and we need to repeat and repeat. It's very important, so we can keep our the psychological safety and the trust in our arrangement.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Pleasure.
Great. So
I need to go.
Okay, so last thing before any last word. So anything to say before you go, Fernando?
From my side, well, it's been a pleasure. I love being here. Thank you very much for all your attention. Those of you who want to know more, want to have a copy, you know, my email is there and being shared. Just write me a line, and I'll be more than happy to write it back to you. Okay, been a pleasure.
Thank you, Fernando.
Thank you, Excellentia. Excellentia Institute. Congratulations.
Thank you, Fernando. And
bye.
With this, we come to the end of our second webinar, the third one. So I'm pleased to really leave the floor to the moderator of the next webinar, which is Joanna Visa, with her guest speaker,